All right, so the markets seem to be betting big on peace between Iran and the US. But you have to ask, is that really a safe bet? Today, we're going to decode what's really going on behind the scenes of these negotiations. And let me tell you, it's a story of a deeply divided government, total economic desperation, and, honestly, a pretty high-stakes performance for the entire world. Okay, so let's just dive right in with this one fascinating detail that kind of sets the stage for everything else. When Iran sent a group to negotiate with the United States, it wasn't some small, focused team. Nope. They sent a massive delegation of 70 people. 70! So the big question is, why?
Well, the answer tells you pretty much everything you need to know. That giant delegation, it's not a show of strength. It's actually a massive sign of weakness. It shows the Iranian regime is so fractured, so divided, that they can't even agree on who gets to be in the room. And this internal conflict, it's the key to understanding this whole situation.
So let's really break down what this huge delegation tells us about the power struggles happening inside Iran right now. You know, this isn't just about them negotiating with the US. It's really about them trying to negotiate with themselves. So if you could be a fly on the wall in that room, who would you see at the table? Well, it's not a unified team, that's for sure. It's more like a collection of rivals. You've got people from all these competing factions inside the government, and every single one of them is trying to use these talks to get a leg up back home. Then you've got the super powerful Revolutionary Guard and the regular army, two totally separate centers of power that also have to be kept happy. It's basically a room full of competing agendas. And this gets to the fundamental problem for the US negotiators, right? They're not just dealing with one person or one government. They're trying to cut a deal with a room full of people who don't trust each other. So who in that room actually has the authority to make a promise that's going to stick? That's the million-dollar question. And it's what makes this whole process so incredibly fragile. Okay, so let's talk about the one thing that's powerful enough to force all these rivals into the same room, and that is an economy that's in an absolute death spiral. This isn't really a choice for them. It's an economic emergency. The pressure is on. To really get a sense of the pain they're in, just think about this. Iran's inflation rate was already at a crushing 30 to 40%, and that's before this latest conflict even started. I mean, that's a society already under unbelievable economic stress. And after the conflict, it's estimated to have shot up to a catastrophic 60, maybe even 70%. You just can't overstate what that kind of inflation does to a country. It creates this massive, massive internal pressure from the people to find a way out. And on top of that, you've got the actual physical destruction. The early estimates for material damages from the war are around $150 billion. That is just a staggering figure for an economy the size of Iran's. We're talking infrastructure, factories, military assets, all gone. Now, to put that $150 billion into perspective, look at this. The war damages equal more than 20% of Iran's entire annual economic output. A hit like that can take a country decades to recover from. The people in charge know it. They simply cannot afford for this conflict to get any worse. So with that intense economic pressure cooker building in the background, a whole new phase has started. Both sides have begun to carefully manage the public story, for their audiences back home. This is what you could call the performance of peacemaking. You see, both governments have to find a way to sell this whole thing to their own people. In Iran, the state media is doing a complete 180. The message is no longer about the glory and sacrifice of war. Now it's all about how the sacrifice needed for peace is going to be even greater. Meanwhile, in the US, it's all about projecting strength, right? Announcing new naval patrols to look tough for the folks back home, even if it is mostly for show. And it's so important to remember, this is not a quick fix. What we've seen so far is just the opening handshake. I mean, just for some context, the last major nuclear deal, that took 20 months to hammer out. So this is really the start of a marathon, not a sprint. So you've got all this political theater, all this crazy economic pressure. How are the financial markets reacting to all this? The markets don't really care about performances. They care about outcomes. So what's their verdict? Well, the market's reaction has been really clear and honestly pretty telling. After that initial dip when the conflict started, all the key indicators have either bounced back or just stabilized. And what that suggests is a real lack of widespread panic among investors. Let's look a little closer. The S&P 500, a great barometer for the US stock market, bounced back almost immediately. Brent crude oil, the global benchmark, is holding pretty steady.
And yeah, gold, the classic safe haven asset, it's up a bit, but it's not the kind of dramatic spike you'd see if there was a real panic. The message is pretty clear. Investors are not pricing in a wider war.
So what this all boils down to is a really powerful signal from the markets. Investors seem to believe that the economic pressure on Iran is just so overwhelming that de-escalation is the only logical path forward. As far as they're concerned, the worst is probably already over. And that kind of leaves us with one final big thought to chew on. If the markets are already confident that the final destination is peace, then maybe the real drama and the biggest risk isn't the conflict anymore. Maybe it's the journey itself. Can that fractured, divided group of 70 people actually navigate the long and winding road to an agreement? That's the question we're all going to be watching.